Hey there, Internet. Welcome to the Hard On Gear channel, where I discuss and review my used and abused knives and gear. Since I first decided to start this channel, this is the video I've probably been the most excited to do. This is something that you kind of need more knives in order to pull off, so I had to wait till I built my collection up a little bit, and lo and behold, about a year, almost a year into the channel, crazy enough, here we are. So, what is my one knife that I would choose in an end-of-the-world apocalypse or whatever scenario you can imagine? It doesn't have to be that extreme either. That's just the crazy little fun world my weird head likes to play around in. But this can just be if you had to eliminate all of your collection, except for one, just to go through your regular day-to-day life, doing your 9 to 5 or any kind of whatever job, hobbies, interests, or knife use that you're into. What would be the one knife in your collection that would cover all your bases and allow you to feel somewhat hypothetically comfortable with eliminating the rest of your collection? So I'm going to start pulling knives off the table here one at a time, but a couple things first. First, I just got over a cold, so if you see some weird jumpy edits, it's because I went into a coughing fit and had to cut something together so I didn't have to edit the whole bloody thing apart. So apologize for that. I'll try and get through this best I can. So anything larger than the K-Bar Large Heavy Bowie here, which is a Bowie knife, a decent sized Bowie knife, not as big as they can get. At least for the purpose of this conversation, the largest I'm going to go with is that K-Bar Large Heavy Bowie. So things like the Chance and Hell Bolo, which I very much love, this small machete, that's just not, I'm not going to carry this. If this is the only thing I had, this is just too big. The other thing in the conversation would be something like a small hand axe or hatchet. Wow, I keep forgetting the number. EXT01. That just came out of my cold vehicle, all condensated. But this is the Hogue EXT01. Great freaking little compact tomahawk, let's call it what it is. But I was using this out in the that camping trip I did a few weeks ago, if you want to check that out. And I use this for all kinds of camp tasks, and this thing's awesome. But not what I'm going to be using for this, even though if you had to only have one tool, there's an argument to be made for this. So I'm going to start going through these knives. I'll kind of tell you briefly what each one is, maybe the steel type if I can remember off the top of my head, and then I'm going to pull them off one at a time, and then I'll probably edit out a bunch of dead space as I try and figure out what the hell I'm going to pick, because I honestly have no idea. I'm still very torn on what this knife's going to be. So as I'm going through this process and trying to select my one bear, no, bad, get out of there. We learn from our decisions at a young age and we get over them. Yeah, Garberg, get over there where you belong, next to the other Moras and the Condor Pterosaur. That survival sheath, by the way, in the conversation of the Garberg, I'm going to say that comes into play. That's got the diamond rod sharpener, the very worn down ferro rod for my terrible firecraft. Again, refer to the earlier mentioned video. The tag will be up on the right there somewhere so you can find it. But yeah, that's in the conversation. And yes, this obviously is a knife that I will be looking at, or else I wouldn't be bringing that up. So first, we've got the K-Bar Large Heavy Bowie in 1085 high carbon steel. My very first purchase of a fixed blade after that stupid Bear Grylls Ultimate Knife disaster. 440 ace steel. Who would put 440? Anyways, not a Bear Grylls rant video. So then we've got the Smith & Wesson Spear. I believe that's an 8 CR13 MOV. I could be wrong, but I believe it's the same as these other Smith & Wesson budget knives. Then the SRK from Cold Steel and SK5. That needed a little bit of shiv work to keep it sturdy. Whoops. Then we got the K-Bar 1211 USMC. This is actually the 1214. You can check that full review out if you want to know the details of what's what. That's also a 1095 knife. Then the spring steel of whatever this is in the Glock field knife. Very, very sturdy. I haven't used it nearly the same as these, but very sturdy, reliable fixed blade. Had to stop and think of what the hell this one was called again, but Solingen Steel. It is a Buffalo brand. I had to do some Googling and try to figure out what the very worn down numbers and everything said, but that's just a hand-me-down, and that's a little beat up, but nonetheless still fairly reliable knife. Then there's the Condor Pterosaur in 1095, almost positive 1095, same as the Mora Garberg. Yeah, it's definitely 1095 on the Condor. And then yeah, a 1095, not officially 1095, but whatever Garberg or Mora's equivalent of the 1095 high carbon steel is. And then there is the Mora Companion in carbon, which obviously this one's seen better days, and it will rust if you do not oil it, unlike the stainless steel version, which this is stainless with the mostly full serrated edge, just to give you a couple different options for the companions. And there's the more robust, which These are different Swedish stainless steels, nothing too expensive. Same with the Robust, very similar, just a much thicker, sturdier blade stock, and closer actually to the Garberg. And then we've got the Spyderco Bow River, which HCR13 MOV, $40 Canadian or something like that. This thing's super cheap, super cool. I actually just found this. I had lost it for a few months, just too many knives, don't know where they all are at all points in time. Now this one here, if you're not from Canada, you probably don't recognize it, but Cold Steel has a Canadian belt knife, a $20 version of this, but this is the Grohmann #1 design from the east coast of Canada. This is a local-ish brand, and one that pretty much a lot of the folks I know on the east coast and all over Canada carry. So that's it for that row of fixed blades. Down here at the bottom, we got the HCR13 MOV Smith & Wesson HRT boot knife. I just threw that on my recurve boat quiver for like a small game, coupe de gras deliverer. Yeah, sorry, animal lovers. And the Smith & Wesson, I don't remember if there's a weird name for this, but it's a Karambit, Smith & Wesson Karambit, HCR13 MOV again, and it's just, I had to put some electrical tape on there because it's pretty sharp actually on the ring, but just a weird reverse Karambit thing, which I just bought because it's cheap and fun, and I'm a loser like that, and I like tactical, nerdy, ball ninja shit. Speaking of tactical, there's my first non-Bear Grylls collab Gerber knife, which this is so much better, and I really did need to give these guys a chance again, because I've heard they've just gotten better and better and better. I gotta put some black paracord on that too, because I need a little bit of an extra grip, but that's in 420HC, like all USA-made Gerber products. Speaking of USA-made, down in around, not in, but around San Diego, Tor Anaconda. You need to be clean because you've got some adhesive all over you. But I have used this thing a little bit, but not a ton. But this is in a S35 VN, handmade in America. Also, American-made tops. You'll pay more for them, but not supporting, say, countries that could potentially overthrow our free world and democracy is a very important thing. And while there are some cheap commie knives on here, this is a beautiful thing to have like 5 or 6 of these nice, expensive, handmade, American, or not always handmade, but USA produced and manufactured knives. You know what I'm saying? Anywho, Tops Mills by Elite in 1095. Next to the SE Azula 2, which you all know on this channel because I freaking love this knife. We've talked about it plenty. SE Azula 2 also in 1095. Next to its big competitor, the Bradford Guardian 3. This one's in Bowler N690. Just about everyone knows the Bradford Guardian 3. If you know one of these two, chances are you know both, because like me, you probably looked at both of them before you decided which one you were going to purchase. And then next to that, we've got the Cold Steel Bird and Game, and the other one, they've got a smaller one, the Game and Trout, I believe, or sorry, Bird and Trout, because those are smaller than Game. But you get the idea, so it's just a small, skeletonized, fixed blade neck knife it's kind of designed to be. Then we've got the, speaking of neck knives, I didn't mean to flow these in all like that, but yeah, the CRKT Minimalist in the Warncliffe blade, which is probably the smallest, definitely the smallest knife on the table. HCR13 MOV, by the way, for this, and OS 8 for this, the Bird and Game. So just jump up here really quick, show you that I've got a few multi-tools scattered around there, just to show that I am keeping those in the conversation, and we'll talk about that in a minute. And so I've got Leatherman Squirt, PS4, and the Leatherman Signal, and the Victorinox Pioneer X, all three of which the blade steel is going to be 420HC, with varying steels for the other tools. I guess we are done the fixed blades and the multi-tools. We're going into the folders. Let's do the Tough Light. I've got that up here because it's a little bit different. The Kiradashi is also a utility knife, but the Cold Steel Tough Light in OS 8 is, and I guess I should take these out and as I talk about them. The Cold Steel Tough Light in OS 8 is a utility knife, more or less, but still a knife, but we're keeping that just a little bit separate because it's a weird little hybrid. And here we'll just go down to the bottom row of folders, so you probably haven't heard me talk about these two too much yet. This is the QSB Penguin, and we just talked about these nice American-made knives. These are knives that make me question my integrity when I purchase them. I grabbed these two at Atlantic Knives up in Halifax. You can check him out on Instagram or Facebook. Actually, I don't know if he has Instagram, but check him out on YouTube. He's got a channel, Atlantic Knives and Tactical Supplies in Halifax. And it does indeed make me feel somewhat better about buying these because I have wanted to try the QSB Penguin in particular because it's such a popular budget knife. The CGRB Rampart here, both of these in D2, not as popular, but pretty cool knife when I got it in my hand, and I actually really like it, and it's got pretty good action for the price. Both of these fairly budget, both of these fairly unethical, but again, buying local made me feel a little bit better about it. But yeah, CCP, you can suck it. And yeah, there's way too many knives on this table that are made in very unpleasant places to live or have to be a citizen of. So CRKT, great company, great American company. Believe a lot of their stuff is made in China. I don't really see it on this one in particular, but this is the CEO from CRKT in 8CR13 MOV, which I do believe is a Chinese brand of steels, that whole line of stainless budget 8CR13 MOV and such. So there's the CRKT M16 03BS in Sandvik steel 14C28N, I'm pretty sure. There's the CRKT M16 10KSF, also in 8CR13. No, sorry, not also, but yeah, also in 8CR13 MOV. Not a big fan of that one. That ain't gonna make the list. Gotta hate that knife. There's the D2 Rat Model 2. OS 8 versions of this, of course, as well. Like the OS 8 version of this here, Rat Model 1. A little bit dirty, but there, yeah, Model 1. And we've got the Kershaw Blur in M4. Last one on the bottom row is the Cold Steel Kiridashi, another kind of like the Cold Steel Tough Light utility knife, Japanese utility knife Kiridashi, but this is a pretty cool little budget thing from Cold Steel. So moving up to the top row, there's the Cold Steel SR1 Light, but not so light. Just the budget version of the full S35VN Cold Steel SR1. Again, 8CR13 MOV and made in Taiwan, which, not that far geographically, a very much nicer place to live and work, I hear. Not for long anyways, as of December 2021. Hopefully that goes well for Taiwan. 8CR13 MOV, decent budget steel though. You're going to find in all kinds of budget knives. If you want to move up in the world, Cold Steel and a lot of different companies are using S30 or S35VN, like in the Cold Steel Scorpion Lock 8015. And next to that's the old tried and true, a lot of people's favorite, Recon 1 from Cold Steel. This one's an OS 8. It came in CTS XHP for a couple years. 2015 to 2017 or something like that, and then it's S35VN, like the new Cold Steel stuff now. And here we have the last one of the Cold Steels is the Luzon, medium Luzon, in, you know it, 8CR13 MOV, but again made in Taiwan. Cold Steel does not do business in China, although somebody in the comments let me know they might be doing business in China soon, which, boo, new Cold Steel owners, boo. Oh, that's not what we wanted to see. So we're going downstairs here, the last four knives. We have Spyderco Manix 2 in S30V. Yeah, classic Spyderco execution. Then the black on black tactical is the Paramilitary 2, which very classic Spyderco, except, yeah, blacked out. Then we have the Pacific Salt 2. I'm not going to try and Spidey flick it because it's not going to work too well, but an LC200N, totally stainless, almost impervious to stained steel. Last, folding knife. Oh my goodness, this is taking forever. The Benchmade 940-2 in S30V. Yeah, so there we have it. Now I'm going to start pulling knives off the table, and I'll try to do this quickly. First off, I know for sure my number one knife, if I only had to carry one knife, isn't going to be something that takes up this much damn room. I had to put this on the table because I love this thing and I've used it so much, but just too bloody big, and if I ever had to conceal it, it would have to go like that up my freaking back or something. I don't know. It's just too much for what I'm looking to do here, and holy crap, there's so many sheets banging around. Next, I'll peel two off this end. You guys know, if you've watched the videos, I'm not as big a fan of the Luzon as a lot of people are. I have recently beat this thing up a little bit, and I've got a little more faith in it than I used to, but just not the knife for me. Also, the Kiridashi down here really isn't something I would be picking for my last knife, let's be honest. It's cool, but it's not that cool. Safe to take all these budget Smith & Wesson knives off the table because, well, these are just cheap budget Smith & Wesson novelty items. Somewhat purposeful, but, and the spear especially so, but just not what I'm going to be picking for my one knife. And while I'm looking to grab my next one, would you guys mind doing me a favor and hitting the like button and even subscribing if you haven't yet? You can turn the notification bell on if you want to get the upload notifications every Monday when I upload new videos. But again, that like button alone does the channel wonders, so appreciate that. Next coming off of the table is... I don't like traditional knives. It's just the way it is. I can't get over it. How cool am I? Tactical through and through. Can't help it. Goodbye. Beautiful knife. Great knife. Gone. Gone. Ugh, sorry, I know people like it. Just obviously budget. There's better knives on here. Not gonna happen. I will try that Bow River out sometime soon though and really put that through its paces. Not happening. Too small. Haven't really used it too much because, well, it's too small. Never in a million years. Also too small. Also too small. Also too small. Let's get rid of those because, yeah, just nope, not going to happen. Let's condense things a little bit here. Second, I'll keep that there for now. Still just taking the things that are totally out of the realm of possibility. Too small, too flimsy. If you only have one knife, it's going to be a little more meaty, although what a great budget, light, super compact EDC budget fixed blade. The Cold Steel Bird and Game. Okay, so we're actually getting into the stuff that's more of a possibility that it makes at least the top 5, and then we'll see what happens from there. So let's get rid of, I know for sure, I'm not going to use that one for my only knife. I still don't use it that much as it is. These two, while they're great, are not going to be my last choice, for sure. Goodbye. And really, as you can imagine, a lot of these folders really aren't going to be in the questions, or aren't going to be in the mix, because if you only have one knife, what if it fails? Like the Omega Springs. I know if you're a big Benchmade person, you're going to say, but they don't normally fail. They're just random stories that get blown out of proportion. But they're still flimsy, and that can still happen, and they do have a track record of potentially not having the best quality control for a good period of time. So, nope, sorry, Benchmade. I do have a Benchmade Super Freak, the M4 Freak Griptilian, coming along in the mail soon. There's been some flooding in southern BC. Hopefully that's getting better, but it's also slowing down shipping, which obviously isn't the biggest issue right now they're having, but the shipping's getting slowed. But in a couple weeks, I will have an M4 Super Freak, which I've wanted for a while, which may be a little more rugged of a Benchmade knife that might have made higher of a ranking on the list. Still, Omega Springs. I'm nervous. So, speaking of weird springs and mechanisms, the Kershaw Blur, I've beat this thing up pretty bad, and I've been throwing this thing at trees and stuff just to see if that assisted would crap out on me. And it definitely feels, I don't cut myself here, definitely feels like it's wearing down. It's definitely getting weaker. No, I don't know about weaker, but like it's been damaged slightly, but it still works fine. But I still wouldn't trust my life if I can only have one knife. But, oh, we're getting good here. Things are getting interesting. I'm not going to bring either of the companions, the Mora companions. Basics, all the different Mora knives you could choose. They're robust. There's so many. The Garberg is better in my mind. There's I can't remember the name of it. What's the mid-range $60, $70 Canadian one? That's the in-between. It's still full tang, but it's not quite a companion, not quite a Garberg. I'll plug it up here with a picture. Not in the mix, but great knives, amazing budget knives. If you could only have one knife, there's a lot of people who are going to choose Moras. I'm a loser, and I like things that cost more than $20. So if I had to have one knife, it's probably not going to be a Mora, like one of these standard basic models, but the Garberg's definitely in the mix. Cody Lundeen, if you ever heard of him, he's super old school survival guy, about as rugged as it gets, and he lives and breathes and dies by a Mora knife. I don't know exactly which one he uses. I can't remember. I've heard him talk about it, see it in videos and stuff, but he'd pick a Mora for his only freaking knife, and I don't even know if it would be a Garberg. But anyways, moving on from that, we have a smaller and an ever so shrinking smaller selection to choose from. If I could only have one knife. Paramilitary 2, you're just not quite as rugged as some of the other stuff on the table, so not going to happen. CRKT, M16, nope. Great, love it, awesome. If I could only have one knife, though, this isn't going to be the one. Oh, yeah, I mean, I can take that off the table, right? Squirt's great as a little backup, for convenience, but not rugged. I've got the Leatherman Signal here. You could maybe go for a Super Tool or a Charge or a Wave or whatever. Pick your awesome Leatherman tool that's a little more of a full spectrum multi-tool than this. But if you only had to have one knife and it was a survival situation, that's got the sharpener and the flint, or rather a ferro rod and a few other implements, whistle maybe, and hammer. It's pretty handy rig for survival and end of the world if you only had to have one knife. But you could pick a different Leatherman and tell me down in the comments if you were going to pick a Leatherman or a multi-tool, which Leatherman or multi-tool would you pick? So if I had to pick between the two of these, it's going to be the Leatherman Signal, so I'll get rid of the sack. That's an easy process of elimination. Okay, we're getting places. We are moving along here. So let me just bring some of these. Got the EDC fixed blades kind of in their own little section down here. Bring those up into the world. And now I think we're all kind of relatively in camera. Yay! All right, keeping things in frame is always a challenge. Not my forte, videography and all that stuff. Is that the right word? I have no idea. So that was probably loud on camera. Sorry about that. SRK. That's such a good reputation, but it just never held up for me the same way it has for other people. But I mean, I was gonna say I've been way harder on this than other knives, but really not that much worse than I am on my other stuff. So yeah, not gonna be the one for me, SRK. Although many people might argue that's the one. A Glockfield knife and K-Bar 1211. If I had to choose between the two of you, I have put so many hours and Jesus, how is this not broken? This is not a full tang fixed blade. Neither is this, I do believe. But this is definitely not a full tang fixed blade. These have a lot of bad breaks. Well, not a lot, but there are many on the internet where you can see them breaking at the base of the tang here. But this is one of the most tried and tested military knives of all times. People have entrenched with these. People have done a lot of other things with these. I'm sure this has gone through all kinds of steel and plates and all kinds of different stuff. Now, 1095, super easy to sharpen up, so if you do ding it up, not a big issue. Same as what's on this, basically the spring steel is close to 1095. I just haven't put the reps in with this. It's a thinner blade, not by much, and I should say the blade stock's probably about the same. It's just not as likely to stay in one piece, I would imagine, as this one, which I have thrown and tossed and beat up and dug with. So out of the two of them, Glockfield knife, you just haven't proven yourself to me yet. That's my fault, so I have to put you through some tests to find out. But 1211 still in the mix. Between these two, the Garberg or the Condor, I don't know. Let's just look here and see what else definitely isn't going to make it. Ghost Strike. I don't know why you're still here. You're just very concealable, very tiny. If you could only have one knife and you weren't allowed to have any knives, maybe this would be the one you want to pick. Because this thing is, with the sheath as well, which is super minimalist, very light, slips onto a belt pretty nice. Still projects a little bit, unless you had like a really wide torso that was also very flat. This thing tends to poke out a bit, but nonetheless, great knife. Loving this so far. Not going to be my one knife if I only had to have one knife. Holy smokes. You guys know I'm not a huge fan of the Bradford Guardian 3, right? The 3.5 might be better, but this is too small around the finger toe position. I don't like the idea of my hand sliding up on that if I had to stab into something. Great little knife. Not a huge fan of the leather sheath that it comes with. A little bit big and bulky for my taste. I'd rather have something slim and Kydex. And yeah, I know traditional people scoff. Haha, scoff. But not my one knife if I had to only have one knife. So now we're getting into the hard decisions that I really don't know where this video is going to go. So let me say, if I had to have one knife, it's probably going to be a fixed blade. If it had to be a folder, it's probably going to be a big, beefy cold steel folder, or the Manix 2, or now one of my new favorite knives, the LC200N version of the Spyderco Pacific Salt. And people are going to say, of all the freaking knives on the table and the ones that you've eliminated, this is not probably even as rugged as something like the budget M16 from CRKT. I would say definitely not. But stainless, impervious to rust beyond what the S30V and other stainless steels are, with the exception of H1 probably only. Very light, very easy to carry, very tactical, believe it or not. This is a beautiful knife for, say, Filipino martial arts type movements. The forward curve of the blade, everything like that kind of works with the typical like stick and knife training that a person would do if you're into that kind of thing. So again, if your situation is the end of the world apocalypse type thing, perhaps tactical self-defense is in the mix. But regardless, this thing's slicey dicey, but still thick and beefy enough to be a good worker. You just have to worry that you don't break it, and actually the pivot right now is a little bit loose, so I do need to tighten that up a bit. But just not rugged enough, but still, that's why it's there. It's definitely in the mix. Not high up enough in the list to beat out some of these other knives. Mannix 2, same thing. Love it, love it, love it. Not ball bearing lock, I'm sure you're going to be fine, but you're still a mechanism and a spring. I don't like that too much. So kudos to you if you stuck around this far in the video, because we're getting right down to it. There's not much left to choose from. And while I still don't know what I'm leaning towards, if I'm going to pick a folding knife out of anything I have here, it's probably going to be not the Recon 1, this one in particular because it's pretty beat up. If I had to pick one, there's just not enough time, there's not enough years the Scorpion lock's been in existence for me to know how it holds up over 5-10 years. The Triad lock, the reputation, and I mean, look at the freaking Triad lock on this thing. I would trust this thing as much as I would trust almost any, most fixed blades. Hard to beat something like a full tang like these suckers, but I would definitely trust that. So we'll take the 80-15 out. Out of these, I will right away say, not going to be the 12-11. Too big. There's benefits of having a large knife, and definitely a place where I might wish I had something larger. Get in there. But for the most part, I'll be able to do everything I need with something this size. So why don't we just bring that out there for full size effect. I'm going to get rid of the Condor Pterosaur, because out of these two, this one with this sheath in particular comes with the diamond sharpener and ferro rod, and I'm going to say that's going to be an advantage. But out of a little bit I've used these two so far, I kind of like the Garberg a little bit better, but I haven't used the Pterosaur as much, so we've got to give it time. But if I had to pick now, my one knife would not be the Pterosaur over the Garberg. Out of these 5, I don't even know that these would be my top 5 fixed blades or anything like that, but well, this one obviously not. But I do know these right now are just about the most trustworthy knives I have in my possession. Although I know I haven't used the Anaconda like I had many other things. The craftsmanship behind this, just the design of it is very, very sturdy, very rugged. Convex edge would have to be kept up before, and eventually it would still work just fine as a modified flat ground, whatever. But it's only real downside maybe is that the tip could break, but even so, it'd still be plenty sharp once you reprofiled it. Great knife, but this isn't the apocalypse knife. It's just it's so easy to carry, so concealable, but it's just not tough enough compared to some of the other things on the table. So I love you, Anaconda, but no, not my one knife if I can only have one knife. God, it kills me to say that. Man, this table's dirty. What's on these knives? Yeah, okay, this is easier for me now. While there are benefits, and I know people, some folks, especially cold steel knives, if you were going to pick a folder, you pick a cold steel Triad lock knife. The 80-10 or the 4-Max Scout I know would be people's first choice over the 80-15 or the SR1 or SR1 Lite. But let me know in the comments what your favorite cold steel apocalypse knife would be. I don't think this would be me though, because I think I'd want the fixed blade like a lot of us in the poll that I did last week, I believe, was what would you pick, what category of knives? Most people were in the fixed blade category. Folders were a close second. I'm going with a fixed blade, and if I had to go with one and only one of these knives forever, I don't. Okay, so the Tops Mill Spy Elite is awesome. It's super cool. Freaking love this knife. Been carrying it a lot lately. Been using it a bit. Not compared to the Azula 2, but very, 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 very big fan of this. However, the handle is a little bit small. It's meant to be a little bit lighter, more concealable, more tactical knife. Based on the amount of hotspots I'd be getting, I think, over the course of hard field use, I don't know, and especially with that little back nub, it's great for a thumb ramp, but for really choking up, there's not really a lot of option if you were doing a lot of fine little woodwork. So we're going to be down to these two. The Tops Mill Spy Elite's out. So here we are, the grand finale. We have the Mora Garberg and Carbon, the 1095-ish, and then 1095 Zula 2 from Essie Knives. I know a lot of folks probably thought these would be, especially this would definitely be in the mix. I guess the conversation at this point is really going to be, do I want something with a little more capability, a little more blade, well, twice as much blade length almost, and probably going to be more capable when it comes to batoning and doing more field craft. And I've used this in the bush enough here a couple weeks ago during that trip to know that this thing would be a great knife if you only had one knife. The Azula 2 is awesome in all those respects, except it's going to be a little less capable, way more concealable if that's an issue in the end of the world, and you're going to be able to probably carry this just about anywhere it's on your person whereas you've got basically your hip dangle carry when it comes to the Garberg. There's also the other Molly sheath, tablecloth. The Molly sheath, you can attach it vertical or however else you wanted to some Molly gear. But pros and cons, the two of them. Maura Garberg, you're the winner. And I think I mentioned this in my unboxing video of this, and maybe a couple other videos. I thought this might be the Apocalypse knife and the End of the World knife. And there are the other variants to the Maura, to the high-end Maura lines. There's the stainless steel version of this. There's the different sheath options. I like the high carbon version with this survival sheath, they call it, or survival kit. Let me know what you think. If you really think this was the terriblest knife I could have chose, maybe we just operate on different wavelengths and we're not going to agree on things, because I don't... There's other knives I have that will be good competitors, and the Leatherman multi-tool is a good argument. But this really seems like a clear-cut winner when I look back now at everything else on the side with what I want this to serve in that hypothetical situation, the purpose I want this to serve, rather. This is the one. This makes sense. I'm torn to see knives like the MO Spy Elite, Azula 2, Anaconda, and even some of these sweet hard use folders that would definitely do the job. Hate to see them out of the mix, but this feels right. It makes sense. Yeah, I guess we don't need to ramble on anymore. This has been a long video, I'm sure, even with all the editing, so I appreciate you sticking around. So, same as I asked on the recent Tuesday's hog poll, let me know what your number one knife would be if you only have one knife, what your Apocalypse End of the World, one and done, serve all your purposes knife would be down below. If you want any more details about some of the knives on the table that you've seen today, you can click on the playlist or the video suggested to you over here, or go to the Hog channel and subscribe by clicking on that little Hog button that's floating around in the top left corner. This one has been a lot of fun to do. Appreciate you sticking around to the end. This is the Hard on Gear channel signing off.